Blog Talk Radio.
Well, here we go, ladies and gentlemen. We just finished the Talking Candid podcast with Kim Blyleven. Now we end up in Cleveland, the American Sports History podcast, produced by yours truly, Mark Mancini, hosted by my good friend, brother, mentor, Peter Ray. 347-205-9631. You can catch the archive version on blogtalkradio.com/Mancini Sports podcast platforms, wherever you subscribe to. So it's more of him, less of me. Let me lay the red carpet down, put the podium in its place, and hand off the mic. First of all, Peter, Happy New Year to you. It's going to be a great year this year. Second of all, how can people get a hold of you? And third of all, every 2 weeks we look forward to this because you bring in this great guest to be part of the show in Cleveland. And just so blessed to produce it and listen with the listeners on this.
Hi, Mark. Happy New Year to you. I'm well, and I have a YouTube channel. I make history videos. The channel name is my name, Peter J. Ray, R-E-A. And you're exactly right. We have, for the eighth time, former NBA player from 1980 to 1995, and the author of Celebrating Your Gift of Life, From the Verge of Suicide to a Life of Purpose and Joy, Mr. James Donaldson, for the eighth time. Welcome to the show, Mr. James Donaldson.
Hey there, Peter, and Happy New Year to you. And, slight correction. I was an NBA player from 1980 to 1995. You said 85.
Oh.
So it was a long career.
Sorry. Yeah, that was really incredible. So tonight's topic is NBA history and mental health. I've been going through reading your wonderful book, and I have some excerpts. I'm on Chapter 5, my support group. I want to read some of this and get your commentary, Mr. Donaldson. While I was going through my divorce and the darkness and despair that accompanied it, I was reaching out to medical professionals for consultations and prescription medications. The next thing I did was assemble a group of close friends I'd known for 30 or 40 years. By design, this group consisted of about 5 men approximately my age. 2, however, were older. Coach George Raveling, who had coached me at Washington State University from 1975 to 1979, and Coach Lenny Wilkins, who had coached me on the Seattle Supersonics from 1980 to 1983. George Raveling and I had stayed in touch through the years and become even closer recently. It was really good to see and talk to him about everything I was going through. He had some keen words of advice for me at this time. Here I was at 60 years of age, he said, thinking that life was over and I'd never make anything out of myself again. Then my big opportunity came at age 63. George is 82 now. And so apparently he had gotten involved with, he had a breakthrough with Nike. And then he says, skipping ahead, he said, his words of wisdom stayed with me about how his big break did not come until he was age 63. Here I was at only 60 years of age. He reminded me, James, your best days are ahead of you. I never forgot that, and I do now think my best years are ahead of me, working with my nonprofit foundation, running for elected office in Seattle, speaking professionally around the country to students and student athletes. There's so much that I still want to get out there and do with my life, which is one of the main reasons I decided not to end my life. I will never forget George Raveling, and I'm so thankful he never forgot me. Your thoughts, Mr. Donaldson?
Yeah, thank you so much, Peter. And that's from my book, Celebrating Your Gift of Life, which I published last year, From the Verge of Suicide Back to a Life of Purpose and Joy. And it details my story, what I went through, 2018, and those words from George Raveling still resonate with me to this day. He gave me, I guess, what we call tough love. You know, he helped me out a little bit here and there with a bill or two or utility bill, what have you, but he reamed me out one day. I remember him on the phone just reaming me out saying, James, I've known you since you were in high school, and you have worked so long and so hard to get to where you are, and I'm not going to let you throw it all away now. And that really shook me and just said, wow, because I was really at my wit's end and really ready to throw my whole life away. Because I didn't see, the other side. I didn't see the lightness and the brightness on the other side of this darkness. But George helped me through this, and I'll never forget that. And I think that's what a lot of our young players are missing today. They miss that father figure. George is like a father to me, who continually guides me and advises me, encourages me. We saw the meltdown by Antonio Brown this weekend with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And, I don't know all the details, but I'm assuming that he's lacking that type of mentor, that type of father figure who could sit him down and say, Antonio, you got to hang in there even when the going gets tough.
Tom from Spokane, Washington. Hi, guys. Always love the show. Hey, James, do you see the NBA pushing individuals rather than teams? I grew up with the Sonics team effort title in 1979. This league has no defense leaders or fans either.
Yeah. Well, that's a great question. And, yeah, there's a big difference between when I played back in the 80s and 90s. It was really team basketball. Every good to great team was all about teamwork. You look at the Boston Celtics, the Showtime Lakers, the teams I was on, the Dallas Mavericks, the Seattle Supersonics, the Utah Jazz, Stockton and Malone, and all these teams operated as teams. They had the star players, of course, but the star players didn't do everything to stand out from the team. They stayed within the team concept. They led by example. They played hard. Playing with the Utah Jazz and Karl Malone and John Stockton, Karl would outwork each and every one of us every single day. He'd be in the weight room before practice, in the weight room after practice. He's sprinting up and down the floor during practice. This was a great, great team leader who led by example, but it was never all about Karl. It was never all about John Stockton. It was about the Utah Jazz and being coached by Jerry Sloan. That's the way the basketball used to be played, and I wish they would get back to that.
Daryl from Peabody, Massachusetts. Welcome to the show, Daryl. Daryl asks, any thoughts on Porter walking out in Houston or the clown in New York? Oh, wait a minute, I lost the thing here. The clown in New York, Antonio Brown telling his team to go to hell. This is not mental health. This is complete selfishness.
Yeah, it is, but there might be a dose of mental stuff going on too. You don't know. We don't know all the details. We don't know if they are on prescription medications or they need to be. We don't know if they're getting counseling. But all these things are signs that they're crying out for help. These individuals who think that they're bigger than the game, bigger than their team, they're not. But they learn the hard way that life is going to be full of ups and downs. You don't always get everything your way. And when you're on a team, you owe it to your teammates to just keep on doing the best you can and contribute and never, ever give up. But these guys give up nowadays, and it's so sad to see.
Mike from Danbury, Connecticut. Thanks for listening, Mike. Mike writes, players cared back then. Today they look at their checkbooks before they get on the court. Worries about hurting feelings on courtside seats. The game is going down the drain. Yeah.
Well, we talked before the show, me and you and Mark, the producer, and we mentioned, the old Al Davis teams of the Oakland Raiders back in the 70s. They had that commitment to excellence. No, they didn't win the Super Bowl every year, but it was a commitment to excellence. These big, huge banners all over the Oakland Stadium. And it was just beautiful to see. Players today, I don't know if they have that commitment to excellence. I don't think that they really play to win championships time after time, with the exceptions of a Tom Brady or an Aaron Rodgers and those kind of great players. But most of the other players, I don't know if they really are all in to push their team to that championship level. And Kareem Abdul-Jabbar wrote a great piece the other day. He feels that the NBA players or NBA fans are being cheated by watching today's NBA game because the players do not put it all in. They take load management courses where they are reducing their minutes, reducing their games they play down the stretch. The fans are being cheated, and that's just not the way to play the game. That's not how I played it.
Another excerpt from your book from the same chapter. Lenny Wilkens, my Seattle Supersonics coach in the NBA, is an all-star, all-class, all-the-time guy. Here he was, over 80 years of age, yet taking time to understand what I was going through and allowing me to meet with him almost monthly throughout 2018, to be there for me. Lenny also came to the hospital a couple of times when I was in intensive care after my 2015 open heart surgery. He told me a couple of times that he looked directly into my eyes and thought I recognized him, and I knew he was there, although I have absolutely no recollection of that. Other folks also told me he came, but I couldn't remember it for the life of me. During our monthly breakfast meetings in 2018, he helped me figure out what I had to look forward to. He got so excited when I told him I was thinking about starting a nonprofit foundation and possibly running for city council. Those goals right away told people I at least had some hope and something to live for. Hope is the one thing you really lose sight of when you're in the midst of depression. Even something as seemingly trivial as staying alive to take care of your dog so it won't be lonely gives a suicidal person a sense of hope and purpose.
Yes, that is so true. And, Lenny's been right there for me. I co-dedicated my book, Celebrating Your Gift of Life, to both Lenny Wilkens and George Bradley. These two guys, they were like a pair of crutches that I leaned on. One was under each arm, carrying me through, encouraging me and walking me through that deep darkness I was going through. And so we need each other. Right now I'm counseling and coaching 3 men of my age, 2 former basketball players and 1 former basketball coach. All 3 of them through these holiday season have been right on the verge of suicide. 2 of them very, very close to throwing their lives away. And I keep encouraging them every day. I say, hey, guys, the brightness, the better days are coming. You have to get through this. I'm here to help you get through this. And I pay it forward just like Lenny and George paid it to me. I pay it forward to everybody else out there to hang in there no matter what.
Felicia from Nashville, Tennessee, writes, I think leadership starts at the top, back to the issue of sports teams today. Unfortunately, money is the root of all evils, so owners don't care, and they pass it on to the players. Fans get hit from both sides. We have to lay a better foundation across the board.
Yeah, you can tell the owners in these professional sports teams, the ones that really want to win, they open up the checkbook. They pay high, overpriced salaries to players that may or may not deserve it. But you look at the Los Angeles Rams, have they gone out and got 4 or 5 additional pieces for their team? Great basketball, baseball, football teams, they continue to invest in their team to try to win championships. But that's a very small percentage of owners that do that. The rest of the owners are really just content having a team, owning a team, showing off with their team, and having it be a moneymaker for them, basically, because these teams appreciate wildly every single year, and they typically sell the teams that they bought for hundreds of millions of dollars more than they bought it for. So, they always say sports is a reflection of society. So what we see going on in society now is playing out in sports the very same way.
Yeah, that's the thing is we value wealth and fame over character, and that has to change. Otherwise, things won't get better. Another excerpt from your book, another valuable friend during this time was Chuck Wright. Chuck is a mental health professional. He told me that just by having a small objective, a small goal in front of you, a suicidal person can have a sense of hope, and hope is the best thing we can ask for.
Yes, and that is so true. I was meeting with Chuck as well during 2018 when I was going through all of this, not as a patient of his, but we are friends. We've been friends for 20 years. He's been in the mental health profession for 40 years or so, being a counselor, a professional, and he has a lot of clients that he works with. And he would look for little signs of what I was going through. When we'd sit down over a coffee at a coffee shop, he'd look to see if I'd look him in the eyes. He'd look to see if I could get my thoughts collected and to speak and to share ideas of something that I was hopeful for. And so he kept on encouraging me also and saying, James, see there, you have hope. You have hope that your dog is going to be okay tomorrow. You have hope that you have a home to go to. Those are little bitty things you have to hang on to. And I know they're little bitty things that don't seem like they mean much at the time, especially. But in the big scheme of things, they do add up, and they do have something for the person they hang on to who's going through suicidal ideations.
Stu from Austin, Texas. James, what's your take on these current NBA games getting canceled by COVID? He thinks they should either put them all in a bubble or shut the season down. Last week in Toronto, no fans, but in Brooklyn the next night they had a sellout. Go figure.
Well, again, a reflection of society, I mean, all of our CDC mandates and everything else coming out from the government to various cities and regions around the country. The same thing in sports. I think personally for the NBA, until we get on top of this latest Omicron variant, which is supposed to last another 4 to 6 weeks or so, the NBA should just pause the season and start up again during March or so and make the run for the playoffs. Take a month or two off. Let everybody get healthy. Put yourselves back in your bubble. Get your guys all vaccinated, ready to go. And that will probably be the best thing to make sure that the season fulfills on a strong note instead of just limps along the way it's going now.
Another excerpt from your book, Celebrating Your Gift of Life, regarding dealing with depression and being suicidal. Men typically put together a game plan to get from point A to point B. Women come in with a lot more empathy and a lot more ways to try to heal you emotionally from the inside out, starting with your own inner soul. They also would bring me, this is when you were depressed, things like herbal teas, scented candles, and chocolates. They'd share poems and Bible verses with me. They would pull up a particular song or two from YouTube and send it to me, or they might bake a tray of cookies for me. All those things were appreciated and they made me feel good in the moment. But this guy, at least, along with all that female nurturing, really needed a game plan to execute. So keep that in mind when you or someone you know is going through a suicidal crisis. Men and women need different things. We desire different things, and we respond differently to different things. All in all, everything actually helps in the long run, but we always want to help someone get through a crisis and back to their old selves again as quickly as possible. So having these friends for support is what largely got me through 2018. I asked that group of fellows, when I wake up at 2 a.m. and can't get back to sleep, can I call you? They all said yes, right away. Put me on speed dial. I also let them know I needed them to check in on me 2 or 3 times a week. Up until then, the only time the phone was ringing was from debt collectors or people trying to serve me legal summons, so the vast majority of my phone calls were doing nothing but adding to my stress. It did wonders for me to pick up the phone knowing a friend was calling who actually cared about me and didn't want anything from me other than to see how my day was going or hear what kinds of thoughts I was having and to learn what I was being bothered by at that particular moment. I encourage all of you out there to put together your own small, intimate group of people you can count on and feel very comfortable with. To feel loved and supported are 2 of the things a suicidal person needs more than anything. Unfortunately, when you're in that deep, dark, and desperate place, feeling loved and supported is the last thing you feel. So be there for others, no matter what.
Yes, that is so true, And us men, we are so different. Men and women are so different in the way they handle these things, the way they go through these things. Women, of course, naturally are much more emotional, much more in touch with their emotions. Guys are not, and we need to be. These 3 men that I'm coaching and counseling now, I put out a game plan for them, just like my coaches and my intimate circle put out for me, because we understand game plans. We understand chalk talk, blackboard talk, putting a play together and then go out and run the play. I mean, that's what guys like to do. That's what we relate to. The cookies, the scented candles, the herbal teas were all very, very nice, and I really appreciated each and every one of them. But I really needed a game plan that I could say, hey, just hand me the ball and let me run with it, and that got me finally going through all of this stuff. But we need both the nurturing side of all the treatment and support that we're getting, but we also need the practical game plan that you have to put in place to make sure things are going for you. I'm more than happy to talk to anybody, men, women, kids, about what they're going through. They're very difficult times. because I've been there and I know, and that's what I tell these guys I'm working with now. I know exactly how you feel, and don't even joke about taking your life. Some of them will say, well, I hope I make it through tonight, chuckle, chuckle, chuckle. But I'm like, no, this is not a joking matter. You will make it through, and we're going to make it through tomorrow too.
Andrew from Napa Valley, California. James, do you think Seattle will get an NBA team again? Take the dog and pony show out of Orlando and put that in Seattle.
Well, people say that about several NBA teams that are in small market or floundering type situations. I hope Seattle gets another NBA team. I really hope so. We were great for the NBA for 42 years. The NBA was here. I got here in 1967 and ended up leaving in 2009. 42 years. We were just amazing bunch of fans. There's still a big support for the Save Our Sonics, the Return Our Sonic groups that are out there, tens of thousands of fans. So I hope that Adam Silver, the commissioners, the owners who have to split their ownership pie 1% more or 2% more equally, I hope they all take it into consideration and say Seattle deserves another team. We've been without for 13 years now, and it's time to get the Seattle Supersonics back in Seattle where they belong.
Eric from Warren, Ohio. Baker Mayfield was sacked 9 times last night in the Pittsburgh Steelers-Cleveland Browns game. James, have you ever had a rough game like that?
Oh, yes. Games where you cannot make a basket point blank. Games where you can't get off the floor. You just don't feel good, and you just stink the place up. I've had games like that. You just hope it gets over quickly. You hope you can start making a basket or two. But more than anything, once it's over, and you have to realize it's just one game in your whole body of work. You have to be able to shake that off and say, okay, the next time out, I'm going to prove myself that I belong here, prove to everybody else that I still belong here, and get out there and forget about the past. That's the nice thing about athletes. We have a tendency to forget about these bad games and bad performances and go out and play pretty well the next time. It's a remarkable trait. It's something that's innate, something that's trained, something that's learned. But the good ones do it very, very well. And Baker Mayfield can do that.
Now on to we've been talking about the NBA top 50 players of all time, many of whom you played with. What are your thoughts, Mr. James Donaldson, on the guy they called Clyde, Walt Frazier?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I remember. This is when I first started tuning into NBA basketball, when the Knicks won the NBA championship. Correct me, Peter, if I'm wrong. I think it was 1975, right? They last won?
I'd have to look it up. 72. I'm not sure.
That sounds even better. Yeah. Well, it was a long, long time ago, and yes, Walt Clyde Frazier. I mean, just the nickname itself had you tuning in to watch the Knicks. Willis Reed, Earl Monroe, and all these great guys, DeBusschere, Bradley. And so I watched the Knicks even from Sacramento, California, when I was growing up at. And Clyde was always one of the best players. A great defensive player, underrated, I think, overall in the history of the great NBA guards, because he played in that era of Jerry West and Pistol Pete and Earl Monroe and all these other great players. But Clyde was a rock. He was steady and a great leader for the New York Knicks back in the day.
I've read he has a biography. I don't know when it came out, and he spent a long time a Knicks radio announcer,
mm-hmm.
and he said that over the years, only a few, less than 5, I think, Knicks players approached him and wanted his input on the game. And so that itself kind of shows the problems we were having. When just imagine having a resource like that ignored.
Yeah.
What a tragedy.
I don't understand why players don't want to look up and look out and reach out to older players who've come before them. I used to, when I was playing, I used to see Wilt Chamberlain on the sideline once in a while in the Lakers at the Forum or down in Orlando or Miami. He'd be all over the place. And I always wanted, I mean, it's during the game times, so I couldn't do it, but I always wanted to go over, introduce myself, tell him he was my idol. I respected him so much. And I still want to do those couple things with two of the all-time greats, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Bill Russell. If I could ever just have 30 minutes of their time to sit at their feet and bask in all the wisdom and the glory that they have before they leave this earth, that would be on my bucket list and my dream come true.
Do you know how you could achieve that?
Well, I can reach out to both of them through their people. You have to go through their people who are people around them. But I hope to do that. I mean, Bill Russell lives up here in Seattle. He's been here since he coached the team way back in the 60s and the 70s. So he's one, but he's very, very isolated. He's very secluded, very, very, kind of off to himself. Kareem is the same way. I don't know why these two all-time greats are that way. But I think if I can ever find somebody who knows them, who can get me to at least have a conversation with them, that's on my bucket list of things to do with those two great players.
Do you know anyone who's connected to them you could contact?
Not directly, and indirectly, of course, but not directly. So it's going to be like definitely 7 or 8 degrees of separation to work through that. But it's doable. Anything is if you put your effort into it, and I want to put an effort into it.
Well, I hope you do, because I want to hear what they had to say. Because dead men tell no tales, and those guys are getting up there. So I hope that happens. I wish you well with. We'll put some pressure on you to take those, because you're James Donaldson, so they ought to, you're not a nobody, so they ought to, or just a fan,
But let me say, I mean, even Lenny Wilkins, who I have breakfast with every month, isn't able to get close to these guys anymore, and he played against both of them, especially against Bill Russell. But Bill is so off by himself and so not involved, except for the NBA championship, the Larry O'Brien trophy that they roll Bill out for to present to the winning championship team. That's the only time you see Bill, the only time he ever comes out. So if Lenny can't get to them, and I'm going to work through Lenny to see if we can both do that together, that'd be great.
Well, I wish you well with your efforts in that area. I'd love to hear what happened. Another top NBA top 50, George the Iceman Gervin.
Oh, yeah. Oh, this guy was so smooth and so wonderful to watch. Playing against the San Antonio Spurs all those years, we were both in the same division when I was with the Dallas Mavericks. So we played them 4, 5, 6 times a year. Great teams, but Gervin would put on the show, Iceman, time after time after time, just effortlessly. He never looked like he worked up a sweat out there. Wasn't the greatest defender in the world, but that's not what his job was. His job was to come down and score, 30 points a night easily, and he just made it. I remember some of these great shots, the bank shots that he would just perfect from any angle on the floor, and just smooth as can be, skinny as a rail. I mean, he was not a big physical specimen, 6'7", probably about 190 pounds. But what a great player he was, and a super, super nice guy. I've met George many times over the years. A super nice guy who was one of my favorite players to watch and play against.
Our guest has been Mr. James Donaldson, who played in the NBA from 1980 to 1995. He's the author of the 2021 book, Celebrating Your Gift of Life, From the Verge of Suicide to a Life of Purpose and Joy. As we're winding down, what can you tell us about your latest efforts in the mental health field, Mr. Donaldson?
Well, as I mentioned, I'm coaching and counseling 3 men right now through these suicidal ideations. The holidays are doubly tough on everybody because people get so busy with their own holiday events, their family, the meals, the entertainment, the celebrations, and people who are going through mental challenges end up being all by themselves. And they don't really feel like they can reach out to people because they feel like they're not they might be bothering them or nobody wants to hear from them. These three men I'm working with, like I said, two of them former basketball players, one former NBA player even, and a former basketball coach. They called and reached out to me and said, "Hey, James, I need help. I need somebody to talk to." And just like Lenny Wilkins and George Raveling did for me, I was right there for them, and I continue to be there for them. We're going to get them through this, and that's one of my latest efforts. But, I want your listening audience to realize that, hey, the book that I wrote is a tool and a resource for anybody going through these difficult times. And you can look it up and read about it on the website, celebratingyourgiftoflife.com. And please order a copy. I'll sign it for you personally and drop it into the mail. And it'll be a great thing to share for yourself or anybody that you care about in this world who's going through very difficult times.
And if you buy the book, you'll be apparently connected with you personally and part of your group of friends.
That's right. I continue to send out emails to everybody who's bought a book, encouraging words, supportive, inspirational messages, updates on my work that I'm doing with people that I'm working with. So there's a lot of good things. We need a community. We need a community of help and inspirational people around us, because that way we don't feel like we're all alone. And reminder, we are not alone. I know we feel like we're alone a lot of times, but you are not alone. There's a lot of people out there that care about you, that love you, and that will miss you if you ever depart this world.
Yeah, how cool is that, being a part of this group of friends, support group with Mr. James Donaldson? So don't be like me and buy it on Amazon. Buy it directly from him, Mr. James Donaldson, and then you'll be a part of that wonderful community. We are out of time, Mr. Donaldson. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Well, what a wonderful opportunity to spend time with you, talk with you.
Thank you so much, Peter. This is truly a blessing. And I'm making myself available. We'll talk about it next time I'm on your show, to have people call me up and speak to me anytime they're going through a difficult time. I'll be there for them. No charge, no obligation. Just you need somebody to talk to, I'm here for you.
Our guest has been Mr. James Donaldson, former NBA player and author of Celebrating Your Gift of Life. Next week, we're going to have Marty Gitlin on the show. He's got a book on Sam McDowell, former MLB pitcher. He's written quite a few books. Very interesting fellow. And we'll try tonight after the show, we'll try to get lined up James Donaldson for 2 weeks from now. And so, dear listener, may the road rise to meet you. May the wind be at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face and rains fall soft upon your fields. And until we meet again, may God hold you in the palm of his hand. Good night, everybody. Thanks again, Mr. James Donaldson.
Good night, everyone. Good night.
Good night. God bless us all.